Could you explain your how you would go about to recommend a Supreme Court judge? I mean, kind of be specific. Like, would you recommend more of a Scalia type, or would it be more of a Sandra O'Connor? Okay.
Well, gentlemen, thank you for coming, and thanks for your question. As with all these issues, I think the Republican candidates for president are going to roll through town, and they're going to say, look, I'm for cutting taxes, I'm for reducing spending, I'm for school choice and reform and accountability, I'm for market-based health care reforms, I'm pro-life, I'm pro-traditional marriage, I'm for appointing conservative judges, I'm for being tough on terrorism and the like. So the words of the various candidates are going to sound similar. Now, there'll be some differences, but I think the real question for the people of Iowa and the people of America are not who says the words, but who actually gets it done. Who has the record to back these things up? So on this and many other things, I've actually done it as an executive, as a leader in government. I appointed members to the Minnesota Supreme Court, and I'm really proud of them. I appointed strict constructionists. I wanted to make sure that the people that I put on the court respected this fact, that they should interpret and apply the law as written and not substitute or insert their personal views or political views. And if the law is unclear, they should have the humility to be able to say, you know what, this is unclear, it should be clarified by the legislature, the governor, or the president, not take it into their own hands and write the law on the back of a napkin. Yes, ma'am. Oh, sorry, we'll get to you next. Sorry, I didn't see you stand up.
Hello, I'm Norma Donaghy from Clive, and you may be able to tell I'm a legal immigrant to this country. And when I came over here, I had to sign all kinds of papers saying that I was not going to commit a crime, and that should I do so or become dependent upon the state, I could be deported. So I wonder what your thoughts are on the illegal immigrants that we have in this country who continue to bombard our borders, who are committing a crime by getting here. So there are millions of people outside America who are trying to come here legally so that they can be registered. They're just as eager to work and make themselves part of our American life. I just wonder what your feelings are.
Well, Norma, thank you for the question, and thanks for being here. Thanks for being here legally. We appreciate that. But on these issues, it's important to start with first principles. We're a nation that has one of its cornerstone principles, its founding principles, the rule of law. And so we need to make sure that our culture and our society more broadly respects that principle. And if you have large segments of our population ignoring or violating or violating or ignoring the law and shoving it aside, it not only represents legal violations, but it begins to corrode the culture. You can't have a country that says the rule of law is so important, a paramount principle, and then have people flagrantly violating the law. And if you don't think this is important, go back to New York City pre-Rudy Giuliani. And as you all know from your own life and that experience and many others, if the rule is anything goes, pretty soon it does. And so we need to make sure that we have the law observed and respected and enforced. Now, as it relates to immigration, let's start with the positive. And the positive is this is a great nation, and we have benefited greatly from immigration, but it needs to be legal and reasonable and orderly. That's not what we have now, but let's start with those two principles, rule of law, and second, we value immigration, and let's celebrate legal, reasonable, orderly, legal immigration. But now on the illegal immigration, I've had a lot of things that experience this. The first is we got to enforce the border, both from an immigration and a security perspective. When President Bush asked the governors to volunteer people to go to the border, National Guard troops, Minnesota volunteered under my direction. We sent troops to the Arizona border as part of Operation Jumpstart to help reinforce the border until they could get more people and more equipment down there, and it worked. So number one, enforce the border. Number two, we need a better system to check and verify whether people are here legally or not, and it needs to be quick and accurate and fair and reasonable and not burdensome on employers. So I issued an executive order in Minnesota that said if you want to do business with the state, or your subcontractor who wants to do business with the state, you got to use a system called E-Verify. It's not perfect, but it's getting better. And it's a more accurate system than what we have in this old paper-based system. And then I also wanted the visa expiration dates on driver's licenses. So we have a lot of folks who come legally, and then for one reason or another overstay their legal status. And it's hard to discern once they mix in. So I proposed during the campaign to put the visa expiration dates right on driver's licenses. And the legislature refused to do it, so I issued an executive order, and we got it done administratively. And I think Minnesota is one of the first, and still to this day, one of the only states in the country to have that. So those are some thoughts, but know that I have participated in these issues as a leader, not just with words, but deeds, and we've made good progress in Minnesota and helped the national effort as well. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Governor, and God bless you. Good luck.
Thank you.
It's official. Jimmy Carter is no longer the worst president this country has ever had. And what pushed it over the top for me was President Obama throwing Israel under the bus. And I'm not quite sure, and I'm not real clear, and it's an issue that's just in the middle of my heart. What's your how do you speak to that? What will you do when you become president to ensure that Israel continues to exist as God promised those people?
It's a great set of comments. Thank you very much. Well, Mary alluded to this in her introduction, and we've spent a lot of time as a couple and as a family talking about this and reaffirming our commitment to this for a variety of reasons, but let me just start with the end in mind. There should be no daylight in our words or our deeds or our actions between the United States of America and the country of Israel. No daylight. We stand shoulder to shoulder with them. They share our values, including the values of human rights and free and fair elections and democracy and the free and fair flow of information. Mary and I had a chance to be in Israel. We led a trade mission there a couple of years ago. I think in terms of the 2012 candidates, with the possible exception of my friend John Huntsman, I want to have the most or as much international experience of anybody in the field. I've been to Iraq 5 times. I've been to Afghanistan 3 times, visiting troops and giving encouragement, and as Commander-in-Chief of the National Guard, although they were on federal mission at the time. I've been to Bosnia and Kosovo. I've led trade missions all over the world, including South America and China and India. I've been to other things in Europe and many other things. The point is, in the Middle East, we've been to Israel, Kuwait, Jordan, Turkey, and many other places as well. We need to make sure that the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief, and the leader of the free world understands an important principle. When you're dealing with thugs and bullies, they understand strength, not weakness. And the words matter here, especially coming from the President. And so when he said the other day, for the first time for an American president to utter the words, we're going to move forward with a Palestinian state based on the 1967 borders, that sets off all kinds of messaging, not only to the enemies of Israel in the Middle East more broadly in the world, but it also sends the message that there's a crevice or a break between the United States and Israel. That's dangerous for them, it's dangerous for our national security interests, it's dangerous for America, and it's misguided at a level that's almost unimaginable. And so I want to just assure you that if I'm given the opportunity and the privilege and the responsibility to lead this nation as president, America will stand shoulder to shoulder with Israel.
Healthcare expenses are exorbitant. They're increasing exponentially on a daily basis. Chronic disease is a huge cost driver of our healthcare system. As the leader of this nation, what would you do to help actually reduce the cost of chronic disease?
That's a great question. Thank you for it. You should use some SPF, by the way. Question related to healthcare, and particularly chronic disease. Now, most of you know that there's a few conditions in healthcare that consume most of the money. It's because they're big, expensive, and important conditions, but they include diabetes, heart disease, obesity, cancer, and a few other conditions. So there's a lot of reform that needs to be done in the healthcare system. But one of the most powerful is this. When people have chronic conditions, that they need care for, it's in their best interest and our best interest to get them to the places that provide the best care. Because there are huge differences if you have a chronic conditions in your healthcare outcomes and the cost if you go to the best places possible for your care. And people don't know that. If you think about how hard it is to find out rankings or measures of quality of healthcare providers and outcomes and information about what it costs, it's very difficult, even for the most informed and the most motivated. So I'd like one of the reforms to be in healthcare, and we did this in Minnesota, to say to providers, you know, we're going to pay you more if you have not just more volumes of procedures, but better outcomes and better results. And we also want to incentivize consumers, patients, to get to the best places. So we want to say, look, you can go where you'd like, but if you go somewhere that's higher quality, and we know the results will be better, we'll pay you more, or you'll share in the savings. We'll get you a rebate check or an amount like that. Now what that does is it gets people to better healthcare outcomes, and it saves money for them and for us. To give you one example, in Minnesota, we said to our state employees, look, you can go where you'd like for your healthcare, pick your plan, but if you pick somewhere that's got bad results or it's high in cost, you're going to pay more, and if you go somewhere with better results and more efficiency, you'll pay less. 80% of them, of course, migrated to more efficient and increasingly higher quality plans, and the premium increases in that program have been dramatically below market during my time as governor. And there's some powerful examples of this as well. If you have type 1 diabetes, for example, and you don't treat it, or it's undertreated, or you don't get the best care, it can lead to a lot of very dangerous situations. It can lead to organ failure, it can lead to amputations, and it's not good for the patient, and it's very, very expensive to take care of once it reaches that level of morbidity or problem. So the better path is to make sure we have Mayo Clinic level or best of class standards to treat type 1 diabetes patients, to incentivize them and their providers to use the best practices in the world and pay more if they get better outcomes. And guess what? It'll save us money, people will be healthier, and I think we're going to have a better healthcare system, and that's the direction we're headed.